I was standing by the wide glass window of my apartment, watching the city move like a restless heartbeat beneath me. The November air pressed cold against the glass, and the smell of cinnamon coffee lingered from the cup I'd barely touched. My silk blouse clung lightly to my skin, and for a second, I thought about how different this moment was compared to the last Thanksgiving I'd spent with my family. Back then, I had been the single mother. The unspoken shame. The daughter who had disappointed the man she once wanted to make proud. I had learned to wear my resilience like perfume, subtle, but enough to carry me through every room I walked into. No one really knew the full story. Not my colleagues, not even most of my friends. They just saw the woman who seemed to have it all together. My phone buzzed on the marble counter, dragging me out of my thoughts. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't expected to see. My father. For a second, I froze, my heart beating too loudly in my chest. It had been years since that night, the one when he looked me in the eye, in front of everyone, and called me a disgrace. Then he told me to leave. I exhaled slowly, pressing my fingertips against the cool glass. Why now? I whispered to no one. My thumb hovered over the screen, torn between answering and letting the past stay buried. I can still smell the roasted turkey from that night, mixed with a faint sweetness of pumpkin pie cooling on the counter. The dining room was lit with golden candles, their flames flickering against the crystal glasses my mother only brought out once a year. Thanksgiving was supposed to be about family, about gratitude. But for me, it became the night my world split in two. I had just turned 23. My daughter, Emily, was barely 2 months old. I carried her into that room with shaky hands, her tiny pink blanket wrapped around her like a shield. I thought, naively, that maybe, just maybe, my family would soften when they saw her. That they would remember love before judgment. But the moment I stepped into the room, conversations died. My uncles stared down at their plates, my cousins whispered, and my mother's eyes glistened with a sadness she never voiced. Then my father rose from the head of the table, his jaw set like stone. "You think you can walk in here," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "After what you've done? Bringing shame into this house." My throat tightened, words tingling inside me. "Dad, she's your granddaughter." "Don't," he snapped, slamming his hand against the polished wood. Emily stirred in my arms, whimpering. "You are the family disgrace. A single mother, parading her mistake into my home, not under my roof." The words stung like knives, each syllable burning into me. My hands trembled as I clutched Emily closer, tears blurring the edges of my vision. Around me, no one spoke. No one defended me. The silence was its own betrayal. "Leave," he said finally, his voice low but final. "You're not welcome here." I stood frozen for a moment, my legs heavy as stone. And then I felt a gentle hand slip something into my pocket. My grandmother, quiet, frail, her blue eyes shining with defiance, whispered, "You're stronger than you think, Anna. Don't forget that." I didn't even look back as I carried Emily out into the freezing night. The November wind bit against my cheeks, but all I felt was the crushing weight of rejection. My father's words echoed in my head, but beneath them, my grandmother's voice lingered like a fragile flame in the dark. That night, I promised myself one thing: I would never beg for a seat at their table again. The first weeks after that night were brutal. I moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat in downtown Chicago. The radiator clanged like it was fighting for its own survival, and the wallpaper peeled in the corners, but it was mine. Emily's crib sat by the window, and at night, I'd watch her sleep, her tiny chest rising and falling, reminding me of the reason I couldn't give up. I worked nights at a diner, slinging coffee and pie to truck drivers and students cramming for exams. During the day, I nursed Emily, then sat at my thrift store desk, laptop glowing against the cracked wall, teaching myself everything I could about digital marketing. SEO, copywriting, social media ads, I devoured it all like oxygen. Every keystroke felt like defiance, every late night like a battle won. One afternoon, while scrolling through job boards with Emily balanced on my lap, I stumbled upon a posting for a small boutique looking for someone to manage their online presence. I applied with trembling fingers, fully expecting rejection. Instead, I got a call from the owner, a woman named Rachel. Rachel was the first person outside my grandmother who ever looked at me and said, "You've got something." She didn't care that I was young, broke, or a single mother. She cared that I worked hard and thought creatively. She gave me a shot, and I clung to it like a lifeline. The boutique sales doubled within 6 months. Rachel started recommending me to her friends, then her friends' friends. By the time Emily was 3, I had my own roster of clients, small businesses that trusted me to help them grow. But it wasn't easy. There were nights when Emily cried with fever, and I typed with one hand while holding her in the other. There were mornings when I showed up to meetings with dark circles under my eyes and chipped nail polish, praying no one would notice. Every time someone introduced me as just a freelancer, I felt the sting of being underestimated. Still, I pressed on. I saved every spare dollar, invested in courses, and built a quiet empire from that cracked-walled apartment. Eventually, I registered my own company, Everbright Media Solutions. The name came from something my grandmother once said, "Even in darkness, you carry a light." By the time Emily started kindergarten, I had an office, a team of 3, and clients in multiple states. Yet I never bragged on social media, never shared the full picture with my family. I posted the occasional smiling photo of Emily at the park, or a vague line about being busy with work. Let them assume I was scraping by. Let them believe I was still the girl they had kicked out. Inside, I was building something stronger than their approval. I was building a life where Emily would never have to wonder if she was enough. And somewhere deep down, I knew the day would come when they'd see it all. The day it happened was almost ordinary. A chilly Thursday in November, just a week before Thanksgiving. My office smelled faintly of fresh coffee and eucalyptus candles, the kind my assistant always lit before client meetings. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Chicago skyline, and sunlight danced across the glass table where I had laid out contracts for a new partnership. Then the front desk buzzed me. "Anna, there's a group here asking for you. They don't have an appointment." I frowned. Names? A pause. "It's your family." For a moment, my heart stopped. I hadn't seen them in nearly 7 years. My father, my mother, cousins, ghosts from another life, suddenly standing in my lobby. I smoothed my silk blazer, steadied my breath, and told myself, "You are not that girl anymore." When I walked out, their faces were a mix of hesitation and curiosity. My father looked older, his hair grayer, his shoulders not as straight. My mother clutched her purse like a lifeline. My cousins whispered to each other, their eyes darting around the sleek marble floors, the framed photographs of award ceremonies, the abstract paintings I'd collected on business trips. "This is your office?" my cousin Jessica finally asked, her voice thin. "Yes," I replied calmly, letting the word hang. "Welcome to Everbright Media Solutions." They followed me inside, eyes scanning the modern furniture, the awards on the wall-sized screen showing live campaign analytics. No one spoke. I could feel the weight of their disbelief pressing against me like a storm. Finally, my father broke the silence. "You run this." His tone carried both doubt and something else, fear, maybe. I met his gaze without flinching. "I built this. From nothing. From the very night you told me I was a disgrace." His lips parted, but no words came. My mother lowered her eyes, shame flickering across her face. I walked slowly around the room, letting my heels click against the polished floor. "While you were whispering about me at holiday dinners, I was here, learning, working, fighting for every client who believed in me. While you assumed I was drowning, I was building something you could never imagine." I gestured toward the glass wall, where the skyline glowed. "Last year alone, we managed over $50 million in ad revenue. I employ 30 people. Families depend on the company you thought I'd never create." Gasps echoed. My cousin Matthew muttered, "No way." I smiled, though my chest burned with every memory. "Yes way. Every step I took because you closed the door. Because, Dad, on Thanksgiving, you looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't welcome in my own home." His face drained of color. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. My mother reached for his arm, as if steadying him. For a moment, I let the silence breathe. Let them feel what I had carried all these years. Then I spoke, my voice steady, strong. I am no one's disgrace. I am proof that rejection doesn't kill, it fuels. And now, you stand in the company of the woman you cast aside. Take a good look. Their eyes shifted around the office again. Some with awe, some with shame, some with envy. But all of them, every last one, finally saw me. Not as a broken single mother, not as a mistake, but as the woman who rose against every expectation. And I savored the moment like a victory 7 years in the making. I let them sit in the polished leather chairs across from me, the same chairs where CEOs and investors had once leaned forward, eager for my advice. My family looked anything but powerful now. My father's hands, once so firm and commanding, fidgeted against his knees. My mother's eyes darted nervously across the shelves lined with books on leadership and growth. I suppose you didn't expect this, I began, folding my hands on the table. My voice was calm, deliberate. You thought I was scraping by, barely surviving. Maybe you even comforted yourselves with that story. No one answered. I leaned forward. But the truth is, I thrived without you. And now you're here, asking for something. So, let's not dance around it. What do you want? It was Jessica who spoke first. We thought maybe you could help. Dad's retirement plans fell apart. The family business isn't what it used to be. Ah, there it was. My father bristled, as if the words tasted bitter. He didn't look at me, but I could feel his pride cracking like old glass. I let the silence stretch before I spoke. I'll consider it, but only under my conditions. Their heads snapped up. My father's brows knitted. Conditions? Yes, I said firmly, because I will never hand out help like charity. If I lift you up, it's because you've learned to stand differently. I turned to my cousin Matthew first. You always mocked me for being ambitious. You told me dreams were foolish unless they fit the family mold. If you want my support, you'll go back to school. Pursue something you love, not what's safe. Prove you're more than the small box you put me in. Matthew swallowed hard, then nodded. Then I faced my mother. Her eyes shimmered, lips trembling. Mom, you stayed silent that night. I don't know if it was fear or loyalty, but silence can wound as deeply as words. My condition for you is simple. Speak. Defend what's right, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's against Dad. Her chin wavered, but she nodded slowly, tears spilling down her cheeks. Finally, my eyes landed on my father, the man who once defined my worth with a single cruel sentence. He stiffened under my gaze. For you, Dad, I said, voice steady. The condition is humility. You called me a disgrace. You threw me into the cold. If you want my help, you will look me in the eye and admit you were wrong. You will say it, not for me, but for Emily. She deserves to know her grandfather can bend, can own his failures. The room thickened with tension. My father's jaw worked, the old fire in his eyes flickering with shame. And if you can't, I leaned back. Then you walk out the same way you once made me walk out empty-handed. For the first time in my life, I felt it. The shift. The weight of power sliding from his hands to mine. And it didn't feel like revenge. It felt like justice. The silence after my words seemed endless. My father's shoulders rose and fell, his pride visibly battling against the years of authority he had worn like armor. I expected him to storm out, to lash back with the anger I'd grown up fearing. But instead, he lowered his gaze. I was wrong, he said finally, his voice raw, almost foreign. Anna, I was cruel. You were never a disgrace. I see that now. The words didn't erase the years of pain, but they cracked something open. A door I had once believed forever sealed. My mother reached across the table, her hand trembling as it brushed mine. I should have spoken that night, she whispered. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'll never stay silent again. I felt tears sting my eyes, but they weren't from weakness. They were from release, the weight I had carried for so long finally shifting. Over the months that followed, I watched them try. My mother stood up for my younger cousins when my father slipped into his old patterns. Matthew enrolled in a business program he'd once mocked, surprising even himself with his dedication. And my father, he softened, not all at once, but slowly, humbly. He showed up for Emily, learning how to listen instead of command. And me? I kept building, kept thriving, but I also allowed myself something new, connection without fear. I no longer craved their approval. I no longer needed their validation. What I had was something stronger, self-respect, hard-earned and unshakable. One evening, I found Emily sketching at the kitchen table. She held up her drawing proudly, a candle glowing in the dark. "It's us, Mom," she said. "We're the light." Her words struck me because they echoed something I had carried for years. I reached into my desk and pulled out the small silver locket my grandmother had slipped into my pocket the night I was cast out. Inside, a tiny engraving read, "You're stronger than you think." I pressed it into Emily's palm. "This is yours now." A reminder that no matter what anyone says, you carry your own light. She smiled, her eyes reflecting the strength I had fought so hard to claim. And in that moment, I knew the truth. I wasn't the disgrace. I was the proof that love, resilience, and courage could rewrite any story. I was never the family disgrace. I was the family's reckoning and their redemption.